Hello and welcome to Mandobug Crafts episode 67. What's up everybody? My name is Amanda, but you may know me as Mandobug on social media. And starting the show out with something I've learned. I have learned a lot about sewing this week. So I guess I'll start with the dresses. So I went over to spend time with my mother-in-law, which at this point I'm just going to call her Lori because I talk about her often enough that we're just going to go with her name, Lori. So I went over and hung out with Lori and we sewed some dresses for Emily, and I learned that you may want to finish your edges even if the fabric's not going to unravel. And that probably sounds stupid to other people because you're probably like, oh, yeah, duh. But I'll explain to you why, right? So the very first thing that I made was the skirt. So I followed a blog, and the blog said if you use a jersey knit, you don't have to finish your edges. You can just cut the jersey knit and it'll be fine. And so far this skirt has been fine, although she hasn't really worn it yet. We tried it on, it fits, but she liked the dress more. So after making this skirt, which was incredibly easy, you just make two squares and gather it on an elastic band, and you can see the stitches right over the top. So I didn't really like how you could see the stitching over the top, but you know, it is what it is. Oh, and you saw right there, I had some issues with the zigzag. I was using Lori's machine and I set it to the wrong zigzag setting, and I kept trying to fix it and I just kept going, so there was a little funkiness there, but I mean it's still a functional skirt, so I don't mind. But I didn't like that you could see the stitches. And then I was thinking, what if I attached that bottom skirt piece to a top? Then it could be a dress. And so I had some extra clothes in the diaper bag, so I pulled out one of Emily's t-shirts and I kind of eyeballed a tank top from her t-shirt, giving a 1/2 inch seam allowance where there were going to be seams. So I did seams at the shoulders and seams down the sides. And that's when I found out that I should have finished those edges. I left them raw because they were jersey knits, not going to unravel, but they kind of got worn. So here's the dress. So the top is jersey knit, the bottom is some fabric that I had. I went ahead and kind of just folded up the seam and sewed along the bottom so there wasn't a raw edge, because this one is one that unravels. And I pre-washed both the fabrics. Interestingly enough, after this went through the wash sewn together, it looks like the dye came off possibly. I'm not really sure what's happening there. But the edges are really raw, because Emily has worn this dress like 2 different times, and I just made it a couple days ago. She absolutely loves it. But I need to finish the edges. I think I'm going to finish them the way that I finished the onesie edges. So we'll move on to finish objects. Before I do that though, I wanted to share the dress that Lori made, because it's super cute while we're talking about the dresses. Real quick, Lori made a 4th of July dress for Emily, kind of using a pillow dress tutorial as a guide. It was one that's put out on Hobby Lobby's YouTube page, which I didn't know they had a YouTube, which is pretty awesome. So I subscribed, and I'm going to be keeping an eye out for their content, because the little tutorial for this dress was super easy to follow, and the dress is cute. So she's got this blue stars fabric on the bottom, and then a red polka dot kind of top, and she eyeballed kind of where the bust was going to be, and she nailed it. And then she had some of this velvety bias tape that she used to clean up her armholes. And then she made a fabric bow, which we still need to try on Emily and cut and finish the ends on the fabric, because this is too much, but she wanted to make sure it was enough, and Emily was being stubborn about trying it on. The day that I was over there, she had a Minnie Mouse dress on, and she was like, no, I'm wearing Minnie Mouse dress. We even tried to bribe her with chocolate, and it was not successful. So Sorry, my kids are both napping, and I thought I heard Jack possibly wake up, but it's not. It's just Hallie sleeping by the door. So, yeah, I wanted to share the beautiful dress that she made. And I told her she's going to have to get on the podcast sometime. Maybe I'll just take my camera up there and we'll do a little recording together or something. But, yeah. So, finished objects. I got a little bit of a redemption on my onesies. I showed you guys about 2 weeks ago that I had sewed down the lining just all crooked and all messed up because I was trying to sew while watching the kids. One morning I woke up, okay, so my finals are done, right? I finished my finals, I've passed my classes, so now when I wake up in the morning and the kids are still asleep, I don't have to do homework, I can do crafts. So I got up really early one morning and, well, I just woke up naturally early and decided to go to my sewing room with some coffee and sew and put on some low music, and it was really, really nice. It was like nice alone mom crafting zen time. I needed it bad. So I used that time to make this onesie and get my redemption. So I seam ripped the neckline out and on both of the onesies, and then I just started over again. Although I did have one little hiccup in this onesie. So I redid the neckline. It's much more even on the front, the back, and then you also have to do the same kind of lining on the legs. I added snaps, and this time, I followed this pattern before, but I think I messed this part up last time. This time, I think I did the snap section correctly because you add a contrasting fabric, and I don't think I folded it right last time I did it because I didn't like it, so I stopped doing that part. But I went ahead and followed it all the way through, and I really like this, so I think I did it wrong last time. But I finally figured it out. I did learn, following this onesie tutorial, that, well, tutorial/pattern by Mama Can Do It. I'll link it in the show notes, which you can get to from the description box. I learned that you can remove snaps if you mess up, because I did. Originally, the very first snap that I put in, I had it going like this, and it would like stick out instead of going over the top because I wasn't paying attention. So I removed the snap, which was not easy. So I mean, the way that you put them together, you're supposed to have an anvil, but I lost mine. So I just used a rubber mallet. But when they sandwich together, the little metal teeth clamp it in place, and so you have to break those metal teeth to get it out. So I quickly went to the internet, how do I do this? And they said a leather hole punch, you can punch a hole through the middle and it will break the prongs and you can get it out. Well, I remembered picking this tool up. I don't know if I got it online or at Hobby Lobby or maybe even up here up in Franklin. And I don't even remember why I got it. I have a problem, okay? I have a craft supplies problem. Because I don't think I ever used it, and I don't even remember what I got it for. Maybe it was on sale. I'm not even sure that's true. So I'm like, I think this is a leather hole punch. I think that's what it was supposed to be. I've lost the package, so I don't know. It's got holes in some of the pieces because this turns, and some of them have holes, some of them are flush, and it's metal, and I mean, it's pretty heavy duty. So I used this to go around the snap and crush it, and I crushed until it broke and came off. And luckily I didn't damage the onesie at all, and I was able to just put a new one right in the same spot and fix it. So it's possible, it just was not easy. And if you have something like this lying around in your craft room, who does that? Somebody else has one of these, right? Do you use it? What do you use it for? I don't even know. So, I think that's all I have for finished objects. Oh, I did make another onesie. I have it sitting here. I just haven't put the snaps on it yet, but this was leftover fabric. I made one of these for my daughter, and And I'm doing the 3 to 6 month size just because I know from having kids they don't stay in the small sizes for very long. So I wanted to make something that could get lots of use. Well, and this fabric I got from Maker's Mercantile where I work, and it's like heavy duty. It's Stinzo. It's a knit cotton, and it's like, this one's gonna last. I think this one will too, but it's not as sturdy. But I just thought, it's for my coworker who is a knitter, and I thought she would really like the sheep, so. Alright, works in progress. So I have been continuing on my cowl. I thought I was going to have this done by now, but I got sidetracked with another project, which we'll get into. But it's getting there, almost done. I did the short rows, back and forth, back and forth. I've got my triangle, and now I've got kind of, this is the part that's going to be sitting on the neck. I've got a couple more rows, a couple more decreases, and then the border, and I can bind off. So I probably will finish this today. This is the Bandana Cowl by Pearl Soho. It's a free pattern, and I'm using Haiku Simply Natural, which is an awesome alpaca silk blend, and I'm doing my 16-inch circulars, still loving it. These are, I'm using a US 9 because the original pattern calls for more of an Aran weight, and this is more of a true worsted, so I went down a needle size to meet gauge, and I'm happy. It's not too loose, so you could do a bandana cowl out of worsted weight, just drop down a needle size. Well, depending, you know, depending on your gauge. And then I did make some more progress on the poncho. I finally sat down and counted my stitches the cheater way. So it's a square at this point, so I counted one side and timesed it by 4. Luckily I hadn't made any mistakes, so the numbers turned out. I only had to do one more row to get to my repeat section, so the lace is a 4-stitch repeat, and so I had 39 stitches per side, so at least I think it was 39, and then yeah, because then you get 4 new stitches a row around. So yeah, I was at 39 stitches a side, and so I just went up to 40, and 40 is divisible by 4. So I started adding the lace down at the bottom. I should have just folded this before I picked it up. So I started adding the lace down at the bottom. And originally I thought I was just gonna do one time around, but this pattern has, well, this one has back posts so that when you fold it over, you see the front, they look like front posts. So this one's not folded, so I'm doing front posts, and you can't see the posts until you do at least 2 repeats, 2 rows. So I have at least 2 rows now, and I'm thinking maybe a third, and that's not going to be the end of the poncho, I don't think. I don't think I want to finish it in the lacy shell design. I think I want to reincorporate the linen again, the linen stitch or woven stitch, whatever you want to call it. I think. I haven't, you know, this one I'm just kind of feeling as I go and seeing what I like, and we'll see. If you don't already know, this is just a design that I'm making up as I go, but I'm totally loving it. This is Haiku Simply Worsted, and I'm using a 6.5mm hook, and I think this is my 3rd ball, but the first ball I used wasn't a full ball, so I'm probably just a little over 2, or maybe 2.5. But I'm thinking this will be 3, maybe 4 skein project. We will see. That linen stitch really seems to be eating up the yarn, but I really love how it feels. The only thing is, because it's like a kind of a heavy worsted, almost Aran weight yarn, it is kind of a heavier poncho. But, oh, and actually let me put it on, because the head is stretchy. I did a foundation single crochet to start it so that I would have a nice stretch. So even though this is more to fit around Emily's neck, it does technically fit around my neck. If I was going to make myself this poncho, I wouldn't have it this tight. I would do a couple, maybe 1 or 2 more stitches around, or maybe even 4 probably, because I have to go up stitch repeat size, and then I would do more rows so that it came up more. But it drapes really well. it's just a little heavy because the yarn is a heavier weight. So I'm thinking in the future, I'm thinking about a linen stitch cardigan. I'm thinking I need to design that. For myself, of course, because I'm a selfish crafter. I mean, I could probably do a prototype size for Emily first, just so that I can get the base numbers and then do the math to make my size. Well, and then I'll have a sweater pattern from child up through adult. It would just take some time. The math takes time. But yeah, so that's going well. Whoops. And so then my new work in progress that like stole the show, stole the thunder away from my cowl, I just had to have. So because I'm fortunate enough to work at a local yarn store part-time, I get to see a lot of customers' projects, which is awesome because things on Ravelry, even though designers and photographers do their best to show what the design looks like, it's not the same as seeing it in person. When you see a finished garment or accessory or whatever in person, it makes a huge difference. So, a customer had brought in her starting point shawl. If you are active on Instagram, you probably saw a ton of these in your feed like I did. Right when Hohi finished her, it was a mystery knit along, when she finished it, everyone was sharing their finished shawls, or well, wraps. It's a wrap. Everyone was sharing their photos, and I was like, wow, that's really cool, that's really cool. I'd been wanting to do something like that for a little while as far as knit it up. I'd seen a similar, it was a wrap, but it was kind of, it was done doing short rows and then like leaving some stitches unworked. So like you would make a triangle, work this side up, leaving these stitches live, and then you'd stop, and then you would work these stitches and do short rows up, and then you would do decreases to make it flat again, and then so it was kind of like that. So I'd been thinking about doing something like that, but Hohi's is completely different. It's a pay-for pattern, not gonna give it away, but she's got those awesome shapes in her piece, and so I had to make one after seeing one in person, and it calls for 5 skeins of yarn, and also this wrap is massive. I mean, it's humongous, but after seeing our customers, I'm like, nope, I need one in my life. So I quickly ran back to my stash, like, what do I have that will work? And so I love my color choices, but they are restricted by my stash, which isn't a small size, but it's not a large size. So here's what I have so far. Well, of course my needles are dangling on the table, sorry about that. So I've got all of my 5 colors on here, and I've just started my orange again, and I'm for the most part happy with it. Let me check on that noise real quick. I just want to make sure the kids aren't up. I'll be right back. The kids are still down. Like they're not gonna come straight in here when they wake up. That's exactly what's gonna happen. I don't know why I think they would just get up and wander around the house. They're not like that. They're gonna get up and go, "Where's Mom?" It was the dogs. So, I'm happy with the colors, but I feel like if I took one out, it would look best. But I don't want to just do the pattern with 4 colors. I want to do it with the 5 like it's supposed to be. So I feel like if I took the orange out, I would like it better. Or if I kept the orange, if I took this variegated color out, I would like it better. I'm not sure. But I'm thinking I can just keep going, and overall I like the aesthetic of everything, so I think it's gonna be okay. So the pattern's awesome. Hohi tells you what colors you should put where, like, hey, it looks best if your first color is your lightest and this number color is your darkest, or you can reverse that, or this color, this number looks really good if it's variegated, or whatever. So that's how I chose my colors, although this lace section is a variegated yarn, and I'm kind of wishing that I had swapped the orange for that. I think the orange is a speckled. It's got green speckles in it. I think it would look better in the lace, and then this variegated will look better in more of the rib section, but I'm not ripping back, and I'm just going to leave it the way that it is because I don't want to throw off the design, because I really like the design the way that it is. So the yarn, the white is hedgehog fiber sock in no, that's not hedgehog, that's Madeline Tosh twist light in birch gray. The orange is hedgehog fibers sock yarn in copper penny, and then this variegated brown, like tannish color, that's Penguin Soup's Royal MCN in Whitefall, which was part of the Firefly Club. It was the last color in the club. And then this dark color is Madeline Tosh Twist Light in Leopard. And then this variegated is Hedgehog Fibers Sock in Vengeance. So lots of Madeline Tosh, lots of Hedgehog Fibers, and then some Penguin Soup. So what's funny about the Penguin Soup yarn is by itself, it's not, for me it wasn't a super appealing color. It's a very neutral color. And I tend to look at yarn as a one color project. And so looking at this yarn, I was thinking, okay, probably a shawl, but I wasn't like in love with the idea of a project being all this color. But this yarn goes so well with all of the other yarns to keep them kind of neutral. So that is my progress on Starting Point. And so, what's after works in progress? Check it out. Current events. I don't remember. Let's do, there's no current events, so we can do check it out. So for check it out, I got a new book, which I'm very excited to begin playing with. So this is Creative Stitching by Sue Spargo. Sorry about the glare. And it is like an encyclopedia full, I don't want to give away too much, but it's an encyclopedia full of stitches. All the way from your basic running stitch up to these very intricate, what does she call them? Let's see. Well, that just says circular stitches. But there's beaded stitches, sequin stitches. This one's called turkey work. So, like these filler stitches. So if I show you a portion of the book, like kind of like that. I mean, there's some complex stuff in here. So I'm really excited to play around with these stitches and do some embroidery. I've been wanting to get back into some embroidery work. I really like to do it in the summer because it gets so hot, and every now and then working on big woolly things is just too much. So that's when I like to spin and stitch, is when it's hot like this. So I'm really excited to try it out. Sue Spargo has a very limited club. She does a year-long block of a month along that is like a closed group. You have to get into it, and then and it's a kit, and she sends you what you need, but you have to have the book to know what the stitches are. It saves her instruction space. She can just say, do stitch, you know, whatever the name of the stitch is, and then you use your book to look up what the stitch is and do it where it goes. So I thought that was kind of smart that she does that. But if you're unfamiliar with Sue Spargo, you should definitely just Google her name and look at the images. She has a very fun, whimsical embroidery style, lots of bright colors, lots of texture, like I said, with the beading and the sequins, and she has a lot of fun with her stitching, and I think it's very inspiring. So I had to get the book, so check it out. And speaking of summer and spinning, I guess that's upcoming events. Tour de Fleece is coming up, and although I don't participate as far, like, competitively, I always like to set a goal during Tour de Fleece to spin every day during the tour at least X amount of time. I think the last time I did this it was 15 minutes a day, and I think I'm going to keep that. I can probably do more, but I don't want to stress myself out, especially on my work days. So I'm going to keep it down to 15 minutes a day, and maybe I'll make a rule for myself, like if I spend more on one day, then I don't have to spend on the days that I work, because when I work, I tend to work long hours because I have a little bit of a commute, so I'd rather work a long day than lots of short days. So yeah, I'm going to be doing that soon. And then for upcoming events, I told you guys about the crochet along together that I'm going to be doing with Cowl. I started recording earlier this week. That's coming out in August. So keep an eye out for that. I'll share links to all the information you can find for that. It's going to be a very fun project. So, and then that brings us to Let's Chat. So the kombucha, right? I got to bring the kombucha home, and well, it's the SCOBY. I got to bring the SCOBY home, and my mother-in-law, Lori, I said I'd start using her name, Lori, she has a very big vessel that she brews her kombucha in, because she brews a lot at a time because she drinks it, and so does her husband. So the SCOBY's too big for my vessel, so he kind of like hangs down the side a little bit, but I mean, it's fine. So I transferred him home. She left him in the starter tea, which is just tea that was left over from when she took her kombucha out. So she does batch brewing, which is what I'm going to be doing. There's also continuous brew, but that's not what I'm doing. But with the batch brew, so you have the SCOBY in its starter tea, and you put it in a bowl. You have to like rub vinegar all over, like you wash your hands and then you rub vinegar all over your hands so you don't mess with the pH balance of the SCOBY, and you put it in a bowl. And then I had boiled all the chlorine out of my tap water and let it sit. I used some of that to make my sweet tea. And so then I put the sweet tea in the jar, put the rest of the water in to fill it up almost to the top, and then I put my SCOBY in, I dumped my starter tea on top, and I covered it, put the rubber band on it, put him in the corner, slapped a temperature thermometer on him, and I've just been keeping an eye. So it was really, really warm the first day I brought him home, because it was almost 100 degrees here that day. And so the SCOBY was like up in the like 84 degrees hot, and so he's come down now to like 76, sometimes 78, which is like the high temperature of brewing. So it's probably going to brew fast. But I did taste it today because it went in Sunday, and today's Thursday. It's still pretty sweet, but it does have the kombucha flavor. It doesn't taste like sweet tea, because if you just taste it right after you put it in there, it just tastes like sweet tea, because that's mostly what it is. But as the SCOBY ferments it and eats the sugar and produces its kombucha flavor, it starts to change. And so it had really good flavor, but it's still really sweet. So I got more days to go, but it's only been like 5 days. So I'm thinking in the next 2 to 3 days it may be ready. So I'm just going to keep tasting it every day, so I can figure out when it's time to get my first batch out. And so I will share that with you guys when it's done. It will probably be before I record again, so I'll probably drink a bottle on the next episode and talk to you about it. So I've been doing that, which is a lot of fun, and I've been doing a lot out in the garden. The raspberries have come in this morning. Me and the kids picked, like a little container about this big full of raspberries. I washed them and let them dry, and I put them in the freezer because I want to save up enough to make jam, and I'm afraid that if I don't freeze them, they won't last until we can pick a new batch. So I washed them and froze them, and everything else in the garden seems to be doing pretty well. I have like little jalapenos and little tomatoes, and I finally got the snails off my rhubarb plant. I don't think I told you guys about that. So my rhubarb plant, well, it's mine now, but the previous owner of the house had left it, and I would go check on it every day, like, oh, this is really cool, and there were snails all over it, and it was like looking dead and not green, not happy. And so I would go out every morning and pick the snails off and just toss them over the fence to the neighbors on the other side of the house. And so you know, that was working, but there were still snails. And so finally, my mother-in-law's like, you can wash eggshells, let them dry, crumble them up, and sprinkle it over the plant, and it keeps the slugs and the snails away because it's so sharp and the texture, they just don't come by. So I did that, and ever since I did that, I haven't had problems. So that was really cool. I didn't have to use, like, you know, Sluggo or whatever that stuff is, like the pellets that are supposed to kill them. I was just able to use leftover eggshells. And it's totally working because there's snails on my raspberry plants, which my raspberry plants don't care. They're so resilient. They're like a weed at this point. I mean, they're growing under my house in my front yard, and I have to, like, pick them out of the front yard. But they don't come over onto the rhubarb. So I went ahead and took the eggshells and put them around my tomato plants and my jalapeno plants and my bell pepper plants, just in case, because I know they do typically attract slugs and snails. And then also, Lori had shared a video that you can take leftover banana peels and leftover eggshells and dry them out. So I think it took 2 days for my bananas to dry out because it's been pretty warm here. Until they're crispy, and you put them in a blender and they blend into a fine powder, and you can put that in your potting soil or sprinkle it over your plants, and it acts like a fertilizer because it's got all the nutrients in the powder form. And so I sprinkled it on my plants, and hopefully it works. We'll see. But yeah, and oh, I told you guys my finals are over. I would have liked to get straight A's. I like to be a straight A student. I mean, I did get an A in my business analysis class, but I ended up with B pluses in my other 2 classes. Statistics, because I just didn't put enough time into studying the material, so I didn't understand it to the level of an A, so I was missing questions on the tests. And in my operations research class, it was because I missed some assignments. I couldn't get them in on time because I just, poor planning, right? I took some extra shifts at work, or the kids were a little needier, so I didn't have time to fully concentrate on my homework. So I'll take the grades though. They're passing, and I can move on in my degree. So I have this week off, and I start my next class next month, and so that should be pretty easy to handle. It's not a lot of work. That's all I can think about, really. I know I mentioned to you guys the potty training with Emily, and that's going great. I mean, I still don't have her in pants. I have her in dresses, which is more covered than she was, but I still got to get her into pants, but we're not quite there yet. But yeah, so that's all I have for you guys this week, and I will chat with you next week. Bye!